guys, and welcome to my May wrap-up, where I show you all the books that I read last month. There's quite a lot of them, and most of them I talked about in my massive May book haul, and I talked about them a little bit too much, so I might talk about them a little bit less, those books, in this video, and recommend that you see my haul video as well, if you want to know more about these books, because pretty much all of these books that I read last month are books that I bought in a gigantic book haul. So yeah. Also, I went to see Paul McCartney yesterday, the concert in Amsterdam, and it was amazing. It was so good. Paul McCartney was actually the first concert I went to, I think about 10 years ago, and I got this t-shirt, which I really love, and has the tour dates on the back. And I just want to tell you, I'm so happy. It was so much fun, and I'm actually still a little bit hyper because I was hyper all the way yesterday, and we only got home at around 2 because there was this weird midnight traffic jam. So we only got home at like 2 o'clock at night, but I wasn't tired at all. It actually took me a little while to get back to sleep because it was just so much fun. I was so hyper. But okay, I just needed to tell you that. Now I'm gonna delve right into the books that I read this month. Or last month. Last month. First, I read Carrie Hope Fletcher's book, All I Know Now. If you don't know, she's also a YouTuber. Her YouTuber name is It's Way Past My Bedtime, and she's one of my favorite YouTubers. She makes lovely videos, and this book is just a lovely book. It kind of really reflects her. It's like you read Carrie in a book, which is, of course, she wrote it, but still, like, it's a lot of fun to read. It's basically a book about growing up and advice about things that you go through whilst you're growing up. So it's mostly targeted at teenagers, but even if you're not a teenager like me, it's still a lot of fun to read. Mostly if you're a fan of Carrie's or hopeful, then you will love all the little anecdotes and the personal stories and everything that you put in there. And yeah, it's still great advice, great stories, and I really enjoyed reading it. And I actually made a separate video about this book, which I will probably link at the end and down below. So if you want to know more about it, you can watch that video. I also read Geek Girl. I think this is book 4. It's All That Glitters. Yes, I think it's book 4. And it was amazing, as usual. This is a really fun series to read. It has so much humor in it. And the main character, Harriet Manners, is a massive nerd / geek. And she knows all these random facts, and I really love reading about those random facts because I also like random facts. And she became a model in the first book. She was spotted to become a model, and it's all about that and about her life and her friends, and she gets into a lot of trouble again. I'm not gonna say too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but if you've read any of the books in the series and liked it, I really recommend it. If you haven't read this series yet and you like fun, kind of light, happy reads, then I really recommend it. I also read Alex Rider's Stormbreaker by Anthony Horowitz. Now this is a series that I want to read for a while. I saw it everywhere. I know there was a movie that I wanted to see when it came out, but somehow never did. And then a while back I decided, well, I'm gonna read the book first, and I have to say I really liked it. There was humor in it. Some things were a little bit like, yeah, okay, whatever. You notice that it was a kid's book and more directed at boys, I guess, but I guess it depends what kind of boy or girl you are, but I really liked it. It's about this boy who basically somehow becomes a spy, and I thought it was really funny, and the gadgets he had was really funny, and yeah, I was actually really intrigued to see everything that happened and what was going on, and I really recommend this series if you haven't read it yet. Okay, now I'm gonna do a book that actually wasn't in my previous video. It's Doctor Who Peacemaker. If you've seen my bookshelf tour video, I think part 2, yeah, I showed you the Doctor Who books that I have and said I hadn't read this one yet, but looked awesome. So right after that I actually started reading it. and I really, really liked it. If you're a fan of Doctor Who, I really recommend it. It's just like reading another episode. I have to say, this was actually one of the better Doctor Who books that I read, or at least I thought so. It takes place in the Wild West, which is always a plus. Basically, there is this guy who cures people. He's a miracle worker, like one of those stereotypical what do you call them? In Dutch you call them kwakzalvers. Basically, they rip you off. They have this bottle full of horrible things that you don't want to know, and they won't cure anything at all, but it's supposed to be the cure-all. But his cure-alls actually work. So, the Doctor and Martha find this out, and they decide to see what's going on, and then there's two aliens who start blowing everything up because they're looking for this doctor, this miracle cure doctor. So yeah, I really recommend it. It was a really fun read, good read, and I was really excited to see what was going on. It wasn't too obvious what was going to happen, and I really liked it. It's by James Swallow. Then there's I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson, and I absolutely love this copy of the book. It has these beautiful yellow pages here. It's yellow all over, and it has, let me just show you, it has like all these kind of paint things everywhere, which I really liked. It gives it a really artsy feel. It's also a really artsy book. Basically, it's about these two twins, Noah and Jude, and they kind of switch personalities, because at the beginning, when they're younger, Noah is like this really dreamy kid, and I love the way that he sees the world, and Jude is more of the popular girl, and especially when Noah gets more attention from their mom because he's better at art and she wants them both to go to an art school, Jude kind of rebels and becomes, a really popular girly girl, which her mom doesn't like. And then suddenly, you don't know why, they kind of switch characters, so Noah is now more like the popular kid and kind of normal and boring, and Jude is kind of going crazy, talking to ghosts, and she's really uncomfortable in her skin and kind of weird. And you'll find out why that happened and why Noah and Jude aren't really talking to each other anymore, and everything that happened, and a lot of things click together at the end, which I really liked. And so yeah, it's fun, it's mystery, there's a lot of artsy stuff in there, and I just thought it was a really interesting read, and I really recommend it. I also finally read Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse, and I really like this cover. It's by Rick Riordan, and it's the third book in the series. I only have 2 left to read, which I'm probably gonna do really soon. I don't want to say too much in case you haven't read the series yet, but basically the Olympus gods, like the Greek slash Roman gods, they're real. They still exist, still have the petty fights and everything, and they also still have kids with mortals, and those half-bloods have a camp called Half-Blood Camp, and Percy Jackson finds out that he is one of those kids. He's the son of Poseidon. That's in the first book, and with all the dangers that follows with knowing that you're a demigod and that all the evil, all the bad guys also exist. So I don't want to say too much about this. Basically, Annabeth has gone missing. She's been abducted, and a goddess also has gone missing, and basically they're going to try and rescue them. And I thought it was a really, really good book. I really enjoyed it. And if you like the Percy Jackson series and you haven't finished it yet, or haven't read on past the first or second book, I really recommend it. And if you haven't read the series yet, I also really recommend it. Especially if you're at least a little bit interested in mythology, in Greek gods and everything, then it's really interesting. But even if you're not, it's still a really fun book. I also finally read Cinder by Marissa Mayer. It's book 1 in the Lunar Chronicles. It's basically this adaptation of Cinderella, a really loose adaptation of Cinderella. She's a cyborg, and it's this post-apocalyptic world, sort of. It's post-World War III, I think, and a lot of things have changed, and cyborgs aren't really regarded very nicely. They're basically not seen as human, or at least as lesser. So yeah, they have less rights, and Cinderella is one of them, and she lives with her stepmother, sort of, adoptive mother, and stepsisters. So that's basically still, you know, the classic Cinderella story, but a lot of things are different. First of all, there are people who live on the moon who can kind of mess with your mind. They have sort of mind superpowers. And the prince comes to her shop because she fixes things. She's a mechanic, and asks her to fix a droid of him, and that's how she meets the prince. And there's also this disease going around, kind of like the new plague. And yeah, I don't want to say too much, I don't want to give too much away, just that it was really interesting. It was funny and fast-paced, and I basically read it in 1 or 2 sittings, and a lot of fun to read, and I really recommend it. I also read One Day by David Nichols. I've had this book for a while now, but never read it. And recently I saw the movie at flea market, and I bought the movie, and then I thought, well, I better read the book then as well. Finally, I've been wanting to read this for a while, but my to-be read pile is just, it's massive. So yeah, but I finally read it. It's basically about these 2 people, Emma and Dexter, who meet at the day, or they've met sort of before, but they finally, you know, get together on the day of graduation, and then it shows them every January the 15th, which is the day that they met, like the first day. And then for about 20 years, I think. Yeah, 20 years, 2 people, 1 day. So it's that day. You see that day in their lives over and over in every single progressive year. And I thought it was really interesting to see where they were going and what was happening. I do have to say that I thought parts of it were a little bit boring / depressing. That I kind of, you know, not happy at all. That there was actually part of me that was like, I'm not sure if I want to read on, but I do, at the end, like now that I've read the whole book, I do really like it, but there are some bits that, for me at least, I don't really like depressing books, which might sound weird if you know what the next book is that I'm gonna show you. But yeah, there was also, what I did really like is that they were kind of in the same situation that I'm going to be in really soon, finishing college or university and not being quite sure what to do next. And it was kind of reassuring to read about these 2 people who also had no idea, and just see what they did and where they ended up. So yeah, I do recommend this book, but it's not like a really happy read all the way through. But yeah, it was really good though. So speaking of slightly depressing books, I also read Ways to Live Forever by Sally Nichols, which is about this boy. I think he's like 10 or 11 years old. Let's see. Doesn't say. He's still a kid, and his name is Sam, and he is going to die soon, and he knows he's going to die soon. He doesn't know exactly when, but he doesn't have more than a year, maybe not even a few months, and it's basically how he deals with that, and all the questions that he has that no one wants to answer for him. And he made this bucket list of things that he wanted to do, and then a friend of his who's also dying, it's a little bit sad, recommends that he actually try to do them, even if they seem impossible. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I talk about it a little bit more in my other video. It's sad, but it's also funny, and it's also really honest. It's kind of to the point. They don't really just tiptoe around the subject of dying, or at least this kid doesn't, and I kind of like that they really talked about it. And it's just a beautiful book. It's not the happiest book in the world, which you can probably guess because it's about the kid that's dying, but it is a really good book, and I do really recommend it. And the last book that I read last month is Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers, and Like I said in my previous video, I'd never really seen Mary Poppins that often, maybe like once or twice when I was a kid, because we didn't have it on, what do you call it in English? VHR? Like on tape, we didn't have it on tape, and never read the book either, but I have seen Saving Mr. Banks recently, and then I watched the Mary Poppins movie again, and I really liked it, and I absolutely love this book. It's filled with so much fantasy, so much imagination. It's just, this is gonna be one of those books I'm gonna reread all the time, and I absolutely loved it. If you're into writing or being creative, I recommend it just because there's so much creativity in this book that it's bound to inspire you. And if you just like fantasy and silliness, and I don't know, I really recommend it. It's also quite different from the movie. There are a lot of things in the book that's not in the movie, some things in the movie that's not in the book, because maybe they either changed things or maybe the other novels were already out, because there's more than one book, of course. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, so if you have seen the movie, there's no reason not to read the book. It's so good, and yeah, all I can really say is that I really recommend it, no matter how old you are. It's a really amazing book. That's all the books that I read last month. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you were reading, or if you have read any of these books or want to read them, down in the comments. If you really like this video, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to make me really, really happy, then please subscribe so you can see more of my videos more easily. I hope you all have a lovely day, and as Paul McCartney said yesterday in really amazing Dutch, mazzel!